Okay, first live with WONDR. Welcome, everybody. If you don't know, my name's Sam Reeder, and I'm one of the co-founders here at WONDR. As you probably do know, we're a social learning platform which is helping people connect and collaborate around environmental and social impact topics. And I'm thrilled to be joined today by Georgina Wilson-Powell, who is the Editor-in-Chief of Pebble. And Pebble's an amazing magazine, which you may already know about. Talks about online sustainability. It's an online magazine for sustainable lifestyles. Talks about eco gardens, reducing plastic waste. Recently, you've just covered as well some of the work that the Timber Festival have done, which is part of the National Forest, which I've been really excited about, where you can listen to the sounds of the forest, and never more so have we needed something that relaxes the mind and the soul. You've had 12 years in journalism, managing publications. Speaker and author as well of a new book, Is It Really Green, which looks fantastic. So you're a very busy woman, and I wondered if you'd mind just giving a bit of to our community as well, so they can get an insight into your journey, who you are, and a bit of a background on Pebble as well. Please, Georgina.
Sure. So welcome, everybody. Hello. I'm Georgina. I founded Pebble back in 2016, which feels like a lifetime ago now. I've been working in media for a long, long time. I've edited and published a lot of travel magazines and food magazines, and I've been lucky enough to travel the world, fly all over the place, reviewing luxury hotels and staying in incredible places, which is, a dream for many people. But the more I did that over the course of a few years, I just kept getting this, what we now know as carbon guilt and flying shame. And I was living in the Middle East and using an incredible amount of plastic bottles and plastic waste. And I was just sort of had this moment of looking around and kind of going, this isn't possible. This isn't sustainable for me, let alone the other 7 billion people on the planet. So we need to, we need to change. We can't just carry on doing this. And also, after a long time in the media industry, I wanted to use my communication skills and the platforms that I'd been using to talk about something more in depth and talk about something more purposeful than gold-plated taps or the latest, luxury hotel. So I had this sort of crisis of meaning, I guess, about 5 years ago, and I wanted to do something more purposeful with my life. At one point, I thought I was going to go and be a permaculture farmer before realizing I hate the rain and I'm really not very good at growing stuff. So I decided to stick to my industry and actually use my powers for good. So Pebble is a media force for good. We focus on positive storytelling because I truly believe that we inspire change through storytelling, and we've got enough negative news, we've got enough doom and gloom and statistics and reasons why individuals can't make a difference, and I think that's totally wrong. We so can make a difference. So Pebble is all about making those differences in your everyday life. Our motto is everyday activism. So we talk about everything from the latest ethical fashion brands right through to eco travel and a lot of staycations and British travel at the moment, through to interviews with incredible pioneers, looking at innovation in kind of everything from algae-based packaging to making clothes out of oats. I mean, you name it, we talk about it. Wow. And also connecting with a lot of the conservation and natural sort of nature work that a lot of people are doing, a lot of the campaigning that people like Surfers Against Sewage and Marine Conservation Society are doing. So we're becoming this place and big hub for anyone that wants to be a bit greener, be a bit more sustainable, and really embrace a different way of living.
Thank you very much for that. That sounds an incredible journey so far, and I know there's so much ahead of you as well. You've recently done a new rebrand of the site, which we'll get into in a moment. But I just wanted to kind of pick on a couple of things there, Georgina, if I could. It's such an interesting experience you've had with coming to a realization and reflecting on one's journey and realizing there must be a better way. There must be something that I can do as an individual. So two kind of things there for me, which is when deciding to take that step and shift into a new path, how did you go about considering how difficult that may be and giving yourself the time to think about what that step should be or look like? And was that easy or was that a difficult thing to do?
It kind of all came together really weirdly for various reasons, some of them not particularly happy reasons. I actually lost my stepdad who I was very close to 4 years ago now. And within a month, I'd commissioned an agency to design and build Pebble. So I think one of my ways of dealing with that grief and very sudden loss was actually, it gave me the kick up the bum I needed to do the projects that I'd been muttering about for a year or so. So for me, I'm a big one for gut feeling, which, probably isn't to be recommended all the time. But I had this notion that Pebble didn't exist and it needed to exist, and it needed to fill a gap between mainstream media and like Instagrammers and personal blogs. And I kind of just went for it. I was lucky that I had some savings from my job in the Middle East, and instead of sort of putting that towards a house, I hired a creative agency. And actually the CEO of that agency is now my creative director. We've become best friends. He's very much part of Pebble and was responsible for the look and feel of Pebble version 1 and now Pebble version 2. So yeah, it's kind of, that decision's totally changed my life. Pebble has become my life. It's had such an effect. It's introduced me to so many amazing people, and Pebble really is a family and a community, and that's something I know your readers will love, and something that you're obviously very passionate about as well. And it's just introduced me to so many incredible people that I never would have crossed paths with otherwise. So yeah, it's given me so much as well, which is lovely.
Yeah, no, thanks for going into that. I totally agree with that journey of building a community and seeing other people who can come along with you on that. I know that you've got a large mission at Pebble as well, but you believe heavily in community.
Definitely. And like one of the reasons it was called Pebble at the very beginning is because this idea that, we can all make changes individually, but together we're stronger. You have ripples, you have waves, you see the ocean, it changes landscapes. And this idea of there being one pebble on a beach is something, but you get lots of pebbles together and you change landscapes. So this idea that, we once we all start to act, we inspire other people, we create ripples, and we can change societies and we can change the way we live. And Pebble's sort of overarching mission is to reduce overconsumption. Now that could be in terms of like what you buy at the supermarket every week. That could be in terms of how you travel, what your fashion looks like, what your wardrobe looks like. There's so much scope to reduce what we do and how we do it. And that's kind of what we're focusing on. And at the same time, that gives us a really nice focus on the people that are doing better. The sustainable businesses, the social enterprises, the artisans, the makers, because people aren't going to stop shopping and buying, but hopefully we can sort of shift them into a better way that doesn't damage the planet so much.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, actually. You spoke a minute ago as well about how you decided to use your skill set instead of trying to become or trying to get into maybe permaculture or something. Try to use your skill set for good. And I think the experience we've had with WONDR as well is the diversity of human endeavour and skill sets that can actually contribute to this wider goal of ecological improvement and sustainability. When it comes to the content you create and the journalists you work with or the journalism you produce, is it important to keep in mind the different topics and have that spread of different angles of sustainability? Or how do you go about, what's your philosophy with that kind of content strategy?
For us, it's, I see Pebble very much as a traditional magazine. My background's in print magazines, and that's still how I think of, almost each issue I see every month as having topics and sort of whether they are seasonal or themed or everything, and then we commission around those topics. At the moment, we're doing a lot around Plastic Free July. In September, we also do a lot around Organic September and Zero Waste Week, and some other things that crop up. But we also commission pieces that myself or my team wouldn't be able to write. So we've just started commissioning a lot of pieces of opinion pieces from BAME writers, because I think, obviously in line with the Black Lives Matter protests and sort of this reawakening of sort of structural racism, we need to address that in every industry. And I think there's a real, it's so easy to see sustainability and sustainable issues and sustainable fashion as a kind of middle class white thing, and actually everyone writing about it tends to fall into one group, and I think we need to diversify that and make sure that enough different voices are heard, and different opinions and different experiences. So that's really our focus on commissioning for the next few months, is to bring that diversity forward, and really become a platform where people can share those different experiences.
No, I think that's really important and very powerful. And I think embedded in that, another value that we share feels is that kind of awareness and an educational process of elevating people's consciousness to certain topics as well. And myself included, 100%, I'm going on a journey of, I suppose, enlightenment and just trying to understand the flaws that I have and the gaps in my knowledge. What's your kind of personal feeling with the things that have been happening in 2020, which are many?
Many.
2020 will go down as quite a year. How's that impacting some of the storytelling that you and your team are working on, and where do you see the role of Pebble in that narrative, like you've just mentioned? Maybe just going a bit deeper on that. What's the kind of trends or your community's engaging with? What are some of those topics you're really keen to dig into?
Well, I think what's one really interesting thing is a lot of the topics that have become more popular this year, so like making and mending and being more resourceful and growing your own and baking, and sort of more home-based activities that people are really embracing and learning traditional skills that perhaps they wouldn't have had for the last few decades. A lot of that stuff we've been talking about since day dot. That is very much part and parcel of Pebble. Within this sustainable lifestyle, we are talking about all of those things, from knitting and doing incredible crafts right through to making your own food and growing all your own fruit and veg and things like that. So it's been really good to see much more interest in those topics, and across a wider spread of society as well. I'm really interested to see people perhaps baking bread for the first time or growing herbs for the first time, and taking that sort of toe step dip into a greener, less impactful way. Obviously, at the same time, it's harder to kind of reduce your plastic or reuse a cup because of the kind of restrictions that we've got in lockdown. So I think there's this idea of like, okay, well, what can we do? And whether that is reducing how much we're shopping or buying, or our convenience of based lifestyle. We're obviously not traveling so much. A lot of the restrictions and sort of realigning of our priorities that lockdown has brought, it plays to Pebble's strengths, which has been really good to see. And our community has grown as a result, and our community, I think, has got wider and more diverse as a result. So it's been an interesting time, but also at the same time we are going deeper. With this relaunch that we've just had, we're also bringing forward a lot more in-depth articles as well, so talking about decolonizing and decarbonizing our education system, talking about the impact that COVID is having on our climate commitments. I think after 4 years we're also stepping up sort of in terms of our authority and our sort of expertise and our depth, and actually taking on some of those bigger topics, to give people more of an idea of like how things are working at a macro level rather than just at home as well.
No, that's incredible. I think it's great to see, if I could personally say, it's great to see a brand leading on some of these topics as well, and almost trying to rip off the plaster in some regards. I read the other day a scientist was referring to his kind of career and work he was working against climate change, trying to affect those sort of factors we're experiencing as a planet. And he said that after 30 years, he's only just realised that actually he's fighting a spiritual battle, not a scientific battle. And I think it's interesting how Pebble it's founded on those values, as you say, and they've been there since day one. And now with the pandemic and things like that, it feels the narrative has been accelerated, and we have that opportunity to try and do something about that.
Definitely.
How important do you feel it is for individuals to take it upon themselves to go down that self-learning journey alongside our governments and the wider organisations, without getting too political and putting you in a spot?
It's fine. I think it's absolutely crucial. I think, we all do have a responsibility to learn more, to understand our place in the world, to understand, this idea of intersectionality, the idea of that everything affects everything else, and we are all interconnected, and a lot of the issues that we care about are interconnected, and there are consequences for everything that we do and don't do. You know, I was brought up in the 80s. You know, there was never a thought of where your food came from, where your clothes came from before the shop, and no thought after you put them in the bin. And I think we're changing that you know, quite drastically, to consider all the sort of life cycle of everything that we do. And I think that questioning is essential. And also consumers have a really important part to play in pushing brands and pushing corporations into, you know, change for better. You know, we have a role in questioning and holding to account, and also choosing where we put our money. And that is, you know, a case of what brand you buy, but also, you know, who you support, where you read your news, who you spend time online with, who you decide to share on social, or, you know, what brands of jeans that you buy. Every decision could be an ethical decision. Every decision has an impact. But at the same time, it shouldn't be all on consumers. It shouldn't be all on us to change the world. We have a role to play, but we also massively need government and intergovernmental support and change. And unfortunately, I think that is the area where we're most lacking at the moment, and need a push. You know, I've seen a huge shift in over the last 4 years of people's personal responsibility, and in terms of the carbon emissions that they emit, and actually even realizing they emit carbon emissions to begin with. You know, seeing the sort of impact of buying fast fashion. But we need change at every level, and we need it faster, unfortunately.
And like you say, I suppose, obviously politicians are there, and they should be there for the population and the electorate and the communities. So if we can go on a journey ourselves as a collective, we can hopefully influence those larger factors like politics that we need, and legislation. So thank you for sharing. That makes a lot of sense. I think, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to touch on how it's quite a nice segue. I feel that, you know, we're talking about what the individual can do, and your book's on pre-order, I've seen. And that's coming out in the new year.
Casualty of COVID.
Well, is that why it's been delayed, is it?
Yeah, it was due out in not March, it was due out in May.
Oh, wow.
So unfortunately it hadn't been printed. Well, unfortunately it hadn't been printed yet. So I'm now drastically rewriting sections of it, because some of it no longer applies, which is not something I ever thought would happen. But yeah, I've just about finished it for the second time, and then it's out in January.
Well, hopefully we can take a huge opportunity there, where we come into a new year, and hopefully we've made some progress in safeguarding our societies. But if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about the book, if that's okay. It feels like it's something that could become a great asset to an individual to, you know, reflect on one's own behaviour, and also develop some strategies for how we can improve our lifestyles.
Definitely. So it's called Is It Really Green? And it's Everyday Eco Dilemmas Solved. And it really is as simple as that. It's 150 question and answers of the stuff that you might type into Google or sit at home discussing with your partner and think, oh, there's no way forward on this. You know, is it better to use a dishwasher or wash up by hand? You know, is it better to buy an electric car or a secondhand car? You know, so there's a lot of like this or that, which actually is where people's dilemmas come down to. You know, it's not that the fact that they don't want to do good or they don't want to help, it's they don't know the right decision, and sometimes those decisions aren't the most instinctive ones or the ones that you think would be the right one. So it looks at, you know, takes in like 150 different situations across your home, work, travel, family, and really tries to boil down very simply into like, this is the situation. If you're in this situation, your best option is A. If not, your best option is B. Or try and explain the complications between, you know, behind a situation with why there isn't an easy answer. And sometimes there isn't. You know, if you're talking about the best way to buy fashion, you've got so many different answers. But there are some questions where you're like, it's clearly this. Go with this. So things like
some of them are
and I'm trying to give people a very sort of basic overview quickly of what complicated supply chain issues might be, or, you know, why a local economy is more resilient than a global economy, or what brand of non-dairy milk is best for the planet. You know, so the kind of stuff that you come across every day and perhaps don't action because you're unsure. So it really tries to work on that. So it's a great introduction for people that are starting on their sustainable journey, or perhaps want to sort of share with family and friends. So hopefully it'll be really helpful.
I think that's an interesting point, actually. And maybe you've had experience of this or stories from your own community. But having a book that maybe you can share as a family, a lot of the community we've had have felt sometimes alone in their journeys, and not surrounded by people who have the same. And it's strange how it is almost a belief system, although there's a lot of science behind it. Have you any stories or any experiences maybe relating to the motivations for why you wanted to create the book, around that experience of having a book that you can all share and go on a journey together, perhaps? Has that been a motivation for you personally, or even your community, in creating this book?
I mean, I think there's perhaps been a death of that shared experience. We all read different newspapers and magazines. We all watch different TV programs. We don't do as much communal consuming of media and of information as we used to. I imagine not as many people sit down and watch the news as a family. Right. We're all kind of consuming individually. So I think for me, it was really important to make a book that worked for everybody, and that could be shared. And also, I know how hard it is when the people around you aren't on the same journey you're on, or aren't in the same place, or need to be persuaded. And you're right, it's not just about facts and figures and science. It's about belief systems. It's about emotion. It's about what you consider makes up who you are, and what you want to be doing, and what you think is important, what your priorities are. On a very personal level, when I met my partner, she lived on convenience food and takeaways. I mean, the plastic was just kind of up here, and her consumption of Diet Coke was frightening. And fizzy water and things like that. So we've switched to a soda stream, which means there's no more plastic bottles. She only buys Diet Coke in cans. You can't stop people buying the things they love, or the crutches that they want, but you can convert that behavior into something that is less damaging. And I think having a book that you can go back to and share and all look at together, it takes the sort of personal out of it. You're not then kind of attacking people or like forcing, pointing the finger. You're kind of developing and sharing it together. Because I think one criticism from outside the sustainable bubble is that people who are greener can perhaps do a lot of finger pointing and a lot of sort of guilt tripping. And, we say on Pebble, like, we're the carrot, not the stick. We would never shame people into doing something, or there's no point shouting at people if they're not on that page with you. You've got to encourage and inspire and sort of lead by example.
No, I've been reading a bit around the neuroscience and the human behaviour elements of this, and I think that's a really interesting point you've raised there about being the carrot, not the stick. Because I think when we look through, any anthropologist that looks at human behaviour over time, it's normally been by creating a positive outcome for people to create those behavioural changes long term, than it is necessarily to try and create fear and scaremongering. Although I think those tactics are still important. The work that Extinction Rebellion are doing, whilst I'm not necessarily politically aligned at all, I can see the goal they're trying to achieve. And so you need certain tactics to grab attention in some areas. But I think long-term positive change, the process Pebble's going down, which is awareness, education, positivity, but not afraid of having the hard conversation at the same time, I think is definitely a much more long-term approach to bringing us all on the journey, because it's going to require all of us.
Definitely. And like from my work, I've worked with consumers for 12 or 15 years as that kind of, I know the power that magazines have. I know the kind of the persuasion that's there, both good and bad. And I think for my role in, we were saying everyone's got different roles to play, everyone's got different skills to play. What I'm very good at is presenting a different alternative and making that desirable and making that something you want to be a part of, rather than like guilt tripping people into, oh God, well, you've really got to do this, and making it seem like a faff and inconvenient. To take the mainstream with us, we need to make it, more fun, basically, very, very simply.
Oh yeah, quite simply. Yeah. I know, I like that a lot. Absolutely. And I think we could, go down that path all day, really, because I think there's so much good there, and I think a lot of people watching and reading Pebble already who subscribe to that way of thinking. And And talking of those, sort of subscribers, I know that your Patreon community and your premium community are a core element. I know the community as a whole is a key element towards Pebble, but those people are supporting you as well too. When we look at sustainability, we also have to think commercial sustainability as well. And so when you're looking at, your group of premium subscribers as well, Georgina, I wondered if you'd mind just diving into a little bit about, what does that experience look like for those people, and what's your value system when it comes to that cohort of people you've got on your journey with you?
So first of all, our Patreon subscribers is something quite new. We introduced it at the start of lockdown. Our main content, our main newsletter, that will always be free. That will never change. But we wanted to offer people a bit of a deeper experience, give them a way to support us, because we get an awful lot of people asking how they can support Pebble over and above signing up to our newsletter and things. As I said, it's very much a family and a community, so we get a lot of love back. And it was really a way to kind of get to acknowledge that we're running a business. Times are difficult, but also we want to be doing more. And actually what we are doing with a lot of the Patreon revenue, so 50% of the revenue at least, is going into funding new journalism, because actually that's an industry that is hugely hardly hit. Freelancers are having a really hard time, and actually journalism as a whole has been in decline for a number of years, which I'm sure many people are aware of. But actually that felt like a really positive step for us to do in funneling revenue direct from readers into new journalism on topics that we all care about. So for our first feature that was funded by Patreon went live last week, and it was all about people's favorite charity shops, trying to get people thinking about charity shopping again. Obviously, these, hugely important parts of our high street have been shut for months, having a hugely damaging impact on all these charities. So that felt amazing, and actually it's had a really good response with our Patreon readers, who love to see that their support, it goes directly into supporting someone else, and the outcome is more content, which they love reading, they love sharing. So it feels like a really lovely circular thing. Also sort of dedicating a percentage of our revenue into our new Pebble Forest, which is an initiative we're working with a tree planting company called Treedom, who are amazing. And they plant fruit trees around the equator, where they act as a bigger carbon sink, and then the fruit gets used as a revenue source for the farmers that plant the trees. So it has a really lovely impact from start to finish. And we plant trees for our Patreon subscribers, and then they get to name the tree and keep it. They have an app where they can see it grow, and they get updates. And for me, that's been a really big step forward for us as a digital publication, as a digital company. We don't really have a very big impact in terms of carbon emissions, but we don't have a physical thing either. And sometimes it's really nice to have a physical impact. So for me, knowing that Pebble is funding a forest in Kenya it feels brilliant. You can see the physicality of people's commitment and their positivity. So that's been something we've wanted to do for a while, and I'm really pleased that that's up and running.
Yeah, I can totally understand the tangible element of that, and as a benefit to your community who are financing the great work you're doing at Pebble. It's nice to have that community where there's a two-way process, and I know that interaction with those people as well as being your agenda. How much do they input on the directive of travel and the narrative? Do you ever have people feedback through that group as well?
Definitely. So we are super transparent. I doubt you'll find a publisher that is more transparent. We're very honest with people about what we're doing and the challenges we're facing and the wins and the successes that we have as well. So that people do feel involved. They feel they can email me like a friend and be like, hey, have you thought about this? Or I'd love to read more about this. And I value and really welcome that communication, because I totally believe we are all in it together. We are this community and family, rather than sort of sitting on top and sort of broadcasting to your people below. That's not what we're about. We're very much in this journey together, and there's you won't find anywhere on Pebble us kind of talking about how wonderful and perfect we are. We're very much like, we're doing this, we got this right, but we haven't got this right. Or personally, I'm achieving this, but I'm not. I've still got a way to go on this thing. So I think people do very much see this as an extension of their friendship group. I get some lovely emails from people who just want to tell me how much they love Pebble or something we've inspired them to do. Which is amazing. That's kind of the way you get up in the morning, really.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, again, I think a value that, and I know why our community would love hearing about your story so far, and hopefully we can work together in the future as well. And there's collaboration connections through and through. We're looking forward to sharing a lot of what you've been doing with the community.
Brilliant.
What does the future for Pebble look like, would you say, for yourself, Georgina, and going on that journey? What would you hope to see? You've just gone through a whole rebrand. You've got this whole fresh new look.
Yeah, so we relaunched we relaunched last week, so we've got a whole new look and feel. So if you haven't seen Pebble before, it looks incredibly different to how it used to look. We've improved the functionality, so it's much easier to use on mobile. It's easier to share stories. You can add comments. You can share your own journey on features and all these other lovely things. And that's been a sort of work of for about 9 months, getting that up and running and underway. So we're letting that bed in over the summer and seeing how that does. And then we're also working on a big virtual festival. So we ran 4 big festivals last year in London called Pebble Fests, and they sort of attracted about 1,000 people each. And we had sort of talks and workshops and a big sort of ethical high street of sort of small brands that you could shop and go and make friends with. And that was brilliant because it acted as like a really nice community hub and counterbalance to being online all the time. So we had people from our Pebble Facebook community all meet up at Pebble Fest. It was really cute. So unfortunately we can't do that this year. It's just too much of a risk. So we are moving everything onto a virtual festival platform for 2 days in November, so 7th and 8th November. And actually, the more we talk about it, the more excited I'm getting, because I've realised, all the people that can't join an event in London for geographical reasons can now join us online at the virtual festival. And, we've got a big readership in America and Australia. It suddenly means they can get involved. And we're going to have it over 2 days of talks, and then mend-alongs and cook-alongs and make-alongs, and then a virtual marketplace as well. So everything that people have loved about the event so far, we're just going to switch to digital. So that feels quite exciting.
Yeah, it sounds fantastic. We were speaking just this week around, upcycling, as you say. The charity shops are in, there's a huge amount of benefit that they can offer the society, and we need to look at them as a source of that kind of attire and our clothing, rather than going straight to the high street and buying new. But we were talking about sewing and getting into, developing our own artisan skill sets. Would that be something that anyone can get involved in that festival, or is that specifically just for your, Patreon subscribers or Pebble subscribers, or can others get involved and become part of that Pebble community? And if so, how could they do that? That is a good question. So anyone can come to the festival. That's absolutely, it's open to everybody. And there'll be mend-alongs and sort of make-alongs that anyone can join in. And, we're going to be having a whole range of like upcycling and mending skills on offer. So yeah, totally anyone can get involved in. In terms of programming, we're still kind of working that out. We've got a lot of people that we had booked in for our festival beforehand that already we're booking back in. But yeah, we've got space for things to consider. And we definitely, so the whole theme is around, we're calling it Future Fest. So the whole theme is actually around what does our society look like if we go carbon neutral? Because along with Pebble's positivity theme, we've realised there's, we talk about net zero, we talk about carbon neutral, or carbon positive, but actually what does that mean on a societal level if we get there? Like what will your day look like? What will your home look like? What will your work look like? So we want the festival to be very much about solutions and innovation and excitement, rather than going to another panel where everyone kind of goes, oh God, for 45 minutes and you come away feeling a bit, depressed. So we're working on the programming at the moment. And we'll be ready to, I think we've got about a month before we can reveal it. Well, it's a big case of watch this space, then it sounds like. A lot of exciting things in the offing there.
Yeah,
I think
definitely. And we want to work out how we can involve more communities.
Well, that'd be wonderful. Maybe if you could share a couple of details. What I'll definitely do is I'll make sure that on the link we've just had with this call, there's tons of links so people can get back to Pebble and the community and explore more of the great things you're doing, Georgina. But it's been wonderful chatting with you. I don't know if there's anything you'd like to leave us with and the community at all, any thoughts or anything we haven't covered during the call that you'd like to share. But otherwise, it'd be wonderful just to touch and share with you.
Well, just thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk, because I think we could probably sit here and talk all day. It feels like there's a lot of synergy between the two communities, and I honestly think there's so much goodwill out there, and there's so much interest and excitement about how we live a greener lifestyle, or how we go back to a more making and mending society, or we have less impact. And it's about harnessing all of that energy and excitement and pushing it in the same direction in order to facilitate change. And I know you guys are doing such great work with WONDR, and Pebble, from a content point of view, has got so much to offer for people looking for inspiration and information on how to do a lot of that. So if you're a newsletter kind of person, then our Friday newsletter is our sort of key piece. That's where we share all of our new content and our Lust list, which is our favorite brands at the moment that are doing great things. So you can sign up to that, and then also the more sign-ups we get, the more trees we plant as well. So you're doing good just by signing up as well. But yeah, it's a big undertaking, but it's a job for life, I think.
Well, yeah, and that's where you've got to have that mission, haven't you, which you've expressed, and getting up in the morning to have a mission rather than going into it for any kind of financial reward is where you get that biggest fulfillment, I believe. And I think we're very similar in that sense. And would you say they're the best ways to get in touch with you as well, if anyone wanted to get involved and be part of the community? Those are the best links. Absolutely. Probably to get involved.
So either our Facebook community, which is the Pebble Pod. So if you just search for that on Facebook, then we're all in there. I'm in there almost every day hanging out, or you can get my attention in there. Or just email me at editor@pebblemag.com. That is, it's pretty easy to get hold of me.
Yeah, get more people speaking with you. But it's wonderful chatting with you, Georgina. You've got such a future ahead with Pebble. We're really looking forward to seeing what happens next. The festival sounds incredible as well. I'm looking forward to staying in touch.
Definitely, lots to do.
For everyone in the WONDR community, I'll make sure that all the links are down below. We're going to share this across all of our newsletters within the platform itself. We're an ever-growing community. I think there's a lot of synergies. Like you've said, you are rich storytellers and great journalism. It's something that we only want to spotlight, and look forward to working together in the future on those tasks. And hopefully together we can see what happens when we enter 2021 and keep moving forward as a wider community as well.
Definitely, and I can't wait to see some of the projects that the WONDR community comes up with, because I think that coming together and making stuff happen is absolutely key for both of us. So I think it's so brilliant that you're facilitating that on a sort of peer-to-peer level. I think that's really, really exciting. And bring on 2021.
Thank you so much for your time there, Georgina, and thank you very much
for
expressing more around your story. Look forward to doing this again sometime. And
that'd be lovely. Let's do it.
We'll wrap up here. This is one of our first WONDR Lives. It's been a pleasure speaking with Georgina Wilson-Powell, who's the Editor-in-Chief of Pebble magazine. As I say, we'll share a lot of the links below. Looking forward to doing more lives, more conversation. Please give us a shout. Any comments or thoughts you've got, I'd be happy to share back with Georgina as well. But for now, I'll stay safe and look forward to speaking to you again soon. See you later.
Bye.
Cheers, Georgina.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.